VOICEBOX is a Ticci Toby fanfiction consisting of 12 chapters and was first published on Quotev on the 29th of March 2014. Obviously, all signs point towards it being a magnum opus, so therefore I thought I would read the story together with you all, so we can dull the pain together. Each week, every Tuesday, I'll upload a new chapter. Let's call it Tiki Tuesdays. Now, it begins. VOICEBOX, a Ticci Toby love story. Chapter 6. The next morning after breakfast, Toby and I invaded Ben's room and borrowed a laptop so that we could look up the information on voodoo shops and priestesses. Unfortunately, we couldn't find one within walking distance from our home. The nearest one we found was in New Orleans, Louisiana. So Toby and I went to get changed into our disguises and met back up at Father's office. Shayla, do not work too hard. I want you to have some fun too. I'm sure that you and Toby would like some alone time together as well. Thanks, sissy, but we only have today and tomorrow to finish getting what we need for the spell. Next week, Toby and I will be able to relax a bit while Father does the preparations. Alright, just promise me that you will not stress out too much during the wait. Father is quite good with using magic rituals, and I know that everything will be alright. Okay, sissy, I promise. Father called us into his office, and after Toby and I hugged him, we all sat down to discuss what the plans were for that day. Toby told Father about the voodoo shop we found in New Orleans that was run by a priestess. Very well, I will transport you two to New Orleans, but first, Father reached into a drawer in his desk and handed Toby and I each a cell phone. New Orleans is too far for a mind connection to work, so as soon as you finish your shopping, you need to call me so I can come pick you up. My number is already programmed on speed dial, so you only have to press 1. I also programmed the numbers of the other creepypastas into the phones in case you need them. Thank you, Father. I jumped up and hugged him again. I had never been allowed to have a cell phone before. How old are you? Toby also thanked him, but this time he didn't hug him. I guess he didn't want to get on Father's nerves by hugging him all the time. Father stood up with me still in his arms and wrapped a tendril around Toby. Shayla, since this is the first time I will be transporting you, you should close your eyes. I will let you know when you can open them again. Okay, Father. I closed my eyes and held on to Father tightly. I felt a tugging sensation in my stomach and felt bone-chillingly cold for a minute. Soon enough I was warm again and Father said I could open my eyes. I looked around and saw that we were now standing in a forested swamp area. I could see old Victorian houses and newer brick buildings that made up the city. There were thousands of people walking around, and I could make out some very old cemeteries with high fences around them. I turned back towards Father and hugged him goodbye. After he disappeared, Toby stashed his goggles and mouthguard in his backpack with his hatchets, and we headed out of the swamp and into the city. The streets were confusing, and it took us about 2 hours to finally find the voodoo shop. If we hadn't been paying close attention, we would have missed it, because it looked like a private house. The only reason we found it was because of a small brass plaque on the brick wall in front of the building. Toby and I entered the shop and were surprised that it looked like a normal Wiccan store. I had expected to find a lot of creepy items in there, like jars full of eyes or something, but it was really clean and smelled like vanilla. As we looked around, the owner of the shop came out. She was a tall African-American woman with chocolate brown eyes and long hair who looked about 20 to 30 years old. She wore a long multicolored skirt and an emerald green spaghetti sting shirt. Her wrists were covered in hundreds of different color bangled bracelets and 2 large silver hoops hung from each ear. She greeted us with a warm smile and gently shook my hand. Ah, child, I knew that ye would be coming today. I sees your sister's soul is still safe. How do you know about my sister? And how did you know he would be coming today? At started twitching all of a sudden, and I could hear Toby's neck cracking like it does when he twitches. The spirits told me that ye would be coming, child. It has been over 65 years since I last saw someone from the other realm. Tell me, child, is my old friend Laughing Jack doing well? I haven't seen him since I was a child myself. I'm not putting on a racist accent, I swear. It's how the story is written. I'm not racist, I swear. Did the spirits tell you what we were coming for? Toby asked as he twitched. Yes, child. I have your ceremonial dagger blessed. I sound more like fucking Scottish or Irish. The scorpion venom is fresh from this morn, and I picked out my fattest sacrificial chicken for ye. All I ask for in turn is that ye tell my friend Laughing Jack that Sarafina says hi, and that she ran out of his candy for the children around 63 years ago. If he wants me to help, I'm gonna need some more. I looked over at Toby and shrugged as my twitching started dying down, and I started giggling. He shrugged back before looking back at Sarafina. We can do that. You know, you look very young to be over 65 years old, Toby remarked as I giggled. Thank you, child. It's an old secret ritual that was handed down in my family. My family, yo! I won't be aging again till I am over 150 years old. Not as long lived as ye from the other realm are, but not everyone is blessed or cursed with living forever. She turned and walked behind a curtained area in the shop. A few seconds later, she came back with a small black plastic bag and a cage containing a very big fat chicken. There ye are, children. Now don't be forgetting to give Laughing Jack my message. We won't forget, and thank you for your help, I promised as Toby and I headed to the door. I'll tell him as soon as I see him. It took Toby and I another 2 hours to find our way back to the forested swamp where Father had dropped us off. I called Father since Toby insisted on carrying the chicken and the bag. A few seconds later, Father came and we were back at the mansion. Father hugged me, reminded me that Toby and I had to go grave robbing tonight, and took the chicken and the bags up to his office. I got chicken in a bag. Since it was only 3 in the afternoon, Toby headed up to rest until dinner. I headed for Laughing Jack's room to give him Serafina's message. Unfortunately, Laughing Jack wasn't in when I stopped by, so I wrote him a note and used his pile of candy to hold it down so it wouldn't get lost. I then headed back to my room, grabbed the laptop I had borrowed from Ben, and returned it. He wasn't happy to see that I had borrowed his laptop without asking, but he was too afraid of me and Father to make a big deal about it. After that, I headed to my room to catch a nap before dinner. I knew it was going to be a long night, so sleep sounded good to me. That night after dinner, Toby and I headed out to the cemetery with a body bag to retrieve Rebecca's body. Since the cemetery was in the countryside and Rebecca had been buried in the back corner, we didn't have to worry too much about being discovered. I cut out a big area of grass, rolled it up and placed it to the side of the grave. Toby and I took turns digging. He would dig for a half hour, then I would dig for the next half hour. It took us a total of 6 hours to finish digging, and Toby was nice enough to get Rebecca's body in the bag so I didn't have to see what she looked like after being buried for 10 years. After Toby and I got the body bag out of the hole, we quickly filled it back in with dirt and covered it back up with a strip of grass and stomped it down so that it looked like it hadn't been touched. It was almost dawn by the time we finished at the cemetery, so as Toby carried the body bag, we raced the sun to the portal. We didn't want anyone to see Toby carrying a body bag, though how he carried Rebecca's body touched my heart. Most guys would have slung the body bag over their shoulder, but not Toby. He carried Sis's body as if she were still alive, gently cradled bridal style in his arms. Almost everyone was asleep when we got home, so we headed straight up to Father's office. Father was waiting for us at the door and gently relieved Toby of Rebecca's body. He then gave me a quick hug, sent us to take showers, and told us to get some rest. Toby walked me to my room and gave me a gentle kiss before heading to his room of the night. I smiled as I gathered my nightie and took a long shower. The hot water eased my tired muscles and relaxed me enough that I was almost half asleep by the time I finished drying off and getting dressed for bed. I didn't bother turning my light on as I stumbled over to my bed and laid down, snuggled under the covers with one hand resting on the Skinner I kept tucked under my pillow. I was just about to fall asleep when I felt arms wrap around my waist and pull me into a hard male body. I was instantly awake and carefully pulled my Skinner out of its sheet as I pretended to be asleep. With my eyes halfway shut, I had rolled over and looked at the guy in my bed. With the way my eyes had changed, I had no problem seeing in the dark room, and I almost growled when I saw Jeff in my bed with a sleeping mask over his eyes. Slowly and carefully, I moved my arm down until I had my Skinner positioned right next to his crotch. I leaned in close and whispered in Jeff's ear, "Stay still if you don't want to lose something important to you." I felt him stiffen as he woke up. "Tell me, Jeff, why the hell are you in my bed?" "Aw, sweet cheeks, you know you want me." "Stop calling me sweet cheeks! What the hell ever gave you the idea that I wanted you? Didn't you learn anything from the talk father had with you last time you tried to pull something with me? Come on, sweet cheeks, I know you've been checking me out. You don't have to play hard to get with me." "Jeff, get it through your thick skull. I am not interested in you like that. I'm starting to doubt that I even want to be friends with you. I love Toby, and Toby is my boyfriend, so I want you to stop trying to win me. It's not going to happen. I don't understand. Why is it that every single guy in this story thinks Shayla is so attractive and so want her? And what I don't understand as well is why has Shayla not killed Jeff yet? Jeff has been nothing but fucking rude to her throughout the entire story, trying to get in her pants, but Shayla never once thinks of killing him. But she can kill, innocent, parents, in earlier chapters. She can kill innocent people that have done nothing wrong except maybe birthing some stupid bully, but for fuck's sake, why has she not killed Jeff yet? As I was talking to Jeff, I could hear Father and Rebecca talking in my head. I knew that he would be here in a second to get Jeff out of my room, so I just ignored his whining about how he would be a better boyfriend than Toby was. A minute later, Father transported me into my room and yanked Jeff out of my bed with his tendrils. He disappeared with Jeff, and a second later there was a knock on my door. I answered the door and invited Toby in. It looked like he had just gotten out of bed and his goggles and mouth guard weren't on. "Slender told me what happened. Are you alright, Shayla?" He wrapped his arms around me and hugged me to him. I nodded as I buried my face in his t-shirt and wrapped my arms around his waist. "I'm okay, Toby. Thanks. He just pissed me off, that's all." "Are you sure? I could stay with you tonight if you don't want to be alone." "Oh, bow chicka bow wow." I looked up at Toby and smiled as he blushed. "I'd like that, but I don't think Father would be happy to find out that you were in my bed. I know that you wouldn't do anything, but Father would still not like it." "Alright, but you know where I am if you need me. Good night, Shayla." He hugged me tighter for a moment before letting me go. "Good night, Toby." I smiled at him as he walked out the door and blew me a kiss. That night in my dreams, Rebecca and I laughed and talked about Toby and how she couldn't wait to find a boyfriend of her own. Turns out she had never had one, but that's not much of a surprise considering who raised us. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I finally woke up. I quickly got dressed and heading to Father's office to see if he needed me to do anything, but after he gave me a hug and told me that he had left pancakes and vocal cords in the oven for me, he said he would be busy with the preparations for the rest of the week, and that he just wanted me to have some fun. I smiled and hugged him again before heading to the kitchen for breakfast. Toby was in the kitchen when I got there, and I gave him a hug and a kiss on the cheek before grabbing my food and sitting at the table. Toby sat with me and finished eating his pancakes. After breakfast, Toby asked me if I'd take a walk with him. I smiled and nodded them, ran upstairs to grab my running shoes. We walked together for hours, talking and laughing. Toby was so sweet. He lifted me over mud puddles and swept me into his arms when I got tired of walking. What a schmuck. It was getting close to dinner time when we came to a meadow and I saw a picnic set up by a small lake. The blanket that was set up on the ground was orange and blue. There were 2 white candles in candle holders waiting to be lit, and delicious aromas drifted on the air coming from a picnic basket sitting in the center of the blanket. "Surprise, Shayla," Toby said as he gently set me down on the blanket. I looked up at him and smiled as he sat down next to me. "Toby, this is so nice! How did you set this up?" "I asked Slender if you would mind setting this up for me. I wanted to take you out on a date, but didn't want you to feel the need to hide yourself. Do you really like it?" "I love it." I watched as Toby lit the candles and dished out the food. Father must have put a lot of effort into making the picnic for us, and I reminded myself to thank him when we got home. We had steak, baked potatoes with sour cream, bacon pieces and shredded cheese, broccoli with cheese sauce, and sparkling grape juice. Dessert was triple chocolate black forest cake with vanilla icing. Toby and I talked and laughed the entire time, and after we finished eating, we laid next to each other and looked up at the stars. For me, it was a perfect evening, and I snuggled with Toby with my head on his chest, whilst we watched a meteor shower. Well, that was convenient. After a few hours, Toby and I packed up the picnic and headed home. Toby kissed me at the door and headed into the kitchen to take care of the leftovers from the picnic. I headed up to Father's office to thank him and let him know I was back. I knocked on the door, and after a minute, Father called me to come in. I ran up and hugged him. "Thank you, Father, for making Toby and I that picnic. The food was great." "Well, I am glad that you had a good time, Shayla. I did not, however, make the food. Toby made it before you woke up today. I only reheated it for you and set up the picnic." I didn't know that Toby could cook. He does not tell many people, but his sister taught him when he was younger, and there are times when he has had to do his own cooking during missions. I do not tell the others because it is quite amusing to watch Toby annoy Masky so that he will make pancakes or waffles. I can see how that would be funny. Maybe I can help Toby next time he does that. Well, I'm going to head to bed now, Father. I love you. Good night. I hugged Father again. "I love you too, daughter. Sleep well." I smiled up at Father before heading to my room. I had a quick shower, and after checking to make sure there were no uninvited visitors, I jumped into bed and went to sleep. The next week passed quickly. Every day, Toby and I would practice together in the morning and head out to do something fun together in the afternoon. He would surprise me by taking me to a fair in our dimension, or to Laughing Jack's carnival. He would take me on picnics, and we would go swimming in the small lake in the meadow. At night we would go out and make a few kills. I would collect the vocal cords and the kidneys to take with me. Oh, aren't you such a dynamic couple? I figured that I might as well help Eyeless Jack out with collecting, since they weren't going to need their kidneys anymore. Every night in my dreams, Rebecca and I would talk about our hopes and dreams. She would give me advice about everything, and we would even talk about what we had gone through together when our aunt and uncle were still alive. She never really told me what all happened to her, but by the advice she gave and the takes we had, I came to the conclusion that what had happened to me had also happened to her. I didn't want to ask her if it did. I figured that she would talk to me about it when she was ready. Finally, Friday the 13th arrived. Rebecca and I were excited and nervous at the same time. Father hadn't explained what at all we had to do, though I did know that we would have to be there for the ceremony. Toby kept me company and calm all day. We watched movies together and snuggled on the couch. Finally, it was time for me to get ready for the ceremony. I dressed in the black and silver silk flowing dress and silver sandals that Father had given me for the ceremony, and headed out to the backyard. There was an altar set up under a willow tree in the middle of a pentagram drawn with chalk. I knew Rebecca's body was on it, but there was a black silk sheet laying over her so I couldn't see her. I carefully stepped into the pentagram and stood next to the altar. Father then used the last of the chalk to draw a perfect circle around the pentagram. He lit the candles, incense and smudge sticks and placed them around the circle. He picked up the crystals and placed one of each on the circle at each point of the pentagram, then started the spell. Lux oritur tenebris mors ita vita pariunt. In parentheses, as light gives birth to dark, so let death give birth to life. Father picked up the chicken and used the ceremonial dagger to behead it. Again he walked the circle, letting the chicken's blood cover the chalk. And as the circle closed again, a purple fog-like screen enclosed me and Rebecca, blocking off the view of everything outside of the circle. Phoenix ortu, anima, sicut de reliquis reviviscat. In parentheses, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, let the soul return to life. Da huic formae calamitosam animam presumpti omnibus quae habebat. Give this tragic soul taken too soon the form she should have had. Et quasi in nocte conversa est ad mortem, sic, quod sic, ut det vitam. Like night gives way to day, so must death give way to life. Per vires terrae, aeris, spiritus, aqua et igni iubueo cogam. By the powers of the earth, air, water, and fire, I compel the spirits to do my bidding. Viribus solis et lunae, ac lux et tenebrae, eam adducere corpus ad animam illus iterum vivere. By the powers of the sun and moon, the light and dark, bring the soul of Rebecca back to her body to live once more. As Father spoke the last line, I could feel Rebecca's soul leaving me, and it almost hurt when I could no longer feel her. I looked over towards the altar and saw a bright lavender light enclose it for a few seconds before Rebecca sat up and the sheet slid off her. She looked just like she had in my dreams, so much like me, but her eyes were still the same silver blue I remember. She looked over at me and smiled. As the purple fog receded, I saw Father breaking the circle of blood and chalk. Rebecca got up off the altar and hugged me. Both of our tails swished back and forth in happiness. Little sister, it is so good to be back with you. I have missed holding you so much. Those dreams could not compare to really feeling you in my arms again. Oh, Sissy, I'm glad I don't have to lose you again. We both started crying as Father came and hugged us both to him. I am delighted to finally have both my daughters back, safe and sound. I will never let anything happen to you girls again. Sissy, you should tell Father the new name you decided on. That way we can introduce you to everyone. Rebecca smiled at my enthusiasm and nodded. Father, Shayla and I talked about this, and since she is now VOICEBOX to most people, we decided I should have a new name as well. The name we decided on is Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix. That is a very good name, daughter. Father hugged us tighter and then led us both back into the mansion. Rebecca stood behind Father and I, as Father, called everyone into the living room. Toby came and stood next to me with his arm over my shoulder. I snuggled into his embrace as everyone else sat down and waited for Father to speak. Everyone, I have someone I wish to introduce you to. He stepped to one side, letting the others see my sister for the first time. This is my other daughter, Dark Phoenix. I expect you all to make her feel welcomed. Father, Dark Phoenix, and I then spent the next 2 hours answering a ton of questions, like how she came back, why we looked like twins, and where she had been. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when Father sent everyone to bed. Father had fixed up the room next to mine for Sissy. Father and Toby walked us up to our rooms, and Father hugged us both goodnight before heading to his own room. Toby hugged me and gave me a sweet, gentle kiss before he said goodnight and headed to his room. I barely had the energy to shower and change. I made sure my room was empty, and as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was out. Rebecca met me in my dreams. We found out that while we were no longer in the same body, after spending 10 years together, our minds had formed a connection. Like twins were rumored to have, we had developed telepathy between us. We were both happy that we were still connected, and we spent the night talking about my birthday that was coming up in soon, and how her birthday was only a month after mine. Finally, we would both be immortal, and we would never be separated again. That concludes Chapter 6. Tune in next time for Chapter 7. Can this please end?